not going to be easy, but it is doable. So just stick with it. Just like that. Work this thing loose. And now we've removed our carrier. Set that aside for cleaning. All right, so here we are by the fire. I've let these wheels and tires sit here for a little while, build up a little bit of warmth. That way the tire's carcass is nice and flexible. In the meantime, it's a great idea to go ahead and take the time while this thing's apart to inspect your cush drive bushings. And these are all nice and tight. There's no cracking, no dry rotting. And I checked this wheel bearing already, and the wheel bearing spins nice and freely. And you get your hands real dirty, so make sure you got some rags, and make sure you wash your hands afterwards. But other than that, we're ready to go. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our valve core tool, small side. This is a two different size valve cores. And what we're going to do, so you can see, valve cap off. Don't lose it. Take the small one and put this right here. Okay, now you can see this little tool. Maybe if I can get the camera to focus on it. Nah. Oh, there it goes. All right, cool. That's what's inside your valve stem, and you just use the tool to spin this little guy out, and then all of the air will come out. If you haven't seen one of these before, this valve, when you put air in the tire, it opens and it allows air to flow into the tire, or when you let air out, you open this valve and it'll allow the air to come out. So that's really all there is to it. Make sure you don't lose this. If you do lose it and it goes flying, which I've seen happen before, they're not hard to come by. You can go to any auto parts store and you can get a new one. All right, so now that we've let all the air out, what we've got to do is get the tire separated from the wheel. So the wheel has a little ridge on it, and I'll show you when we get this tire off what it looks like. And we need to push this tire underneath that ridge and down into what they call the drop center of the tire. So the object here is to get the sidewall of the tire underneath this part of the raised wheel. And what that's going to allow us to do is the tire is going to slip under there, the rubber can shift this way, and then we can flip this part of the tire up over the wheel, and then we're going to spin it around and get it off of the rim little by little as we come off of here. It's a lot harder to explain than it is to demonstrate, so here we go. I'm going to use my Motion Pro Bead Pro tools right here. I'm going to use the fork part of it first. Just slip it in here. And you just stick it in between the wheel and the tire and kind of push down. And then you're going to stick this little guy right here and you can pry it away. And you see how it moves the tire away? Now, this is really tough to do. It's going to take some finagling. I'm probably going to go ahead and put it on the time lapse. But right now, let me put this right here so we can hear it a little bit better. Lubrication is the key to a happy and successful life. So I'm going to spray the heck out of this thing. Get some good lubrication in there. And what's going to happen is as I finagle this up and down and back and forth, the lubrication is going to work its way in between the tire and the wheel, and then we're going to be able to get this bead broken off of the rim. So now that I've got it pushed down a little bit, I can take the bottom tool and push it a little bit further. I pry some more. Okay. And then we work it in a little bit more. And we pry a little bit more. It also helps to have other tire irons, so you can get in here and hook under and try to push too. Alright, sometimes it's going to pop out and you're going to have to reset it. It's not a huge deal. It happens a lot. But you just got to work that bead down there. You can already see it's starting to come off. And I'm just going to work this thing, hit it with some lubrication, work it some more. And you're going to hear it hissing and howling through the valve stem. And this is a real big pain. But once you get the bead broken, that's the hardest part. So you got to just try to keep working it. Sometimes it helps to get in here and help it out a little bit. Push it down up, and there it goes. See that? Now we've got the bead broken. Now it's going to stay like that. And now what we need to do is break the bead around the whole tire. And as I do that, I'm going to spray some more lubrication in there. Always remember, lubrication is what? The key to a happy and successful life, my friends. Okay. Now, we've got the bead broken all the way around. So, I don't know if you can see this, but here's that drop center that I was telling you about. Now the rim, when it's mounted, the tire sits right here. It can't go past here because there's a little ledge. And what we just did is force the tire over that ledge. And now it's going to leave us room. The tire can move this way now. And we'll be able to pry this part of the tire up over this lip of the rim. And then we'll be able to peel it off of here. But before I do that, I now have to break the bead on the other side of the wheel. So what we're going to do is flip this thing over. Now we're on this side of the tire. Alright, now I'm going to do the same exact thing that I did before. I'm going to shove this down in here like so. Soap and water, that gets the job done. So, I'm going to try to work from the other side, and here's why. Because if I pry this up over, I can't get this down because of the brake rotor. So it's easier and you have more space if you work from this side. Okay. Now that this is sitting under here, get pushed down a little bit. And this is where we get those tools. The blue rim tools here, so where we don't scratch the wheel. I fitted my rim tool here to help protect the wheel. I'm going to use a tire iron here. The key to getting this up and over the key to getting the tire up over the lip of the rim is to make sure that this is all tucked up underneath that drop center like I was telling you. So what we're going to do is push down a little bit, shove this in here. Now I'm going to pull this part of the rim over. I'm going to pull it over top of the rim. And one of the reasons why I like doing it on this side is because I can rest the tool underneath this thing here. I'm going to grab scratch our wheel. Shove that down under the tire. We're going to pull this end up over. Alright. Now that we've got this part up and over, continue to push here. That way we up over here. Alright. Let's see what I can do. Tap, tap, tap-a-roo. And what we're going to do is just work our way around this tire and get this lip all the way up over the rim. Okay, now we've got this up over. Alright. Just like that, all the way. Now what we need to do is do the same thing, but we need to do it with this bottom lip. And the procedure is pretty much the same. I'm going to use this tire thing so we don't mess up the rim. I'm going to stick this down here. I'm going to make sure I feel it. Stick out the bottom. Let me flip the tire around so you can see. If I stick out the bottom, I mean right here. Okay? And what we want to do is pull this part of the rim, or the wheel, tire, off. And a lot of times with these you can do this by hand, just by pulling on it. And just work it off that way. But I may need to go back in here and do it with the bar. Found it. Up and over. Better show it this way so you guys can actually see what I'm doing here. So that's up and over. Now what I've done is I've got them a little bit too far apart. I can't pry it up, so what I can do, move that over a little bit. There we go. Now we are up and over. And now use my hammer. All right. Now we should be able to pull this out of the hand. Pull your bars out first so you don't scratch anything. Pull these out if you can get to them. Now, tire's off the wheel. Just like that. Think about which direction the tire is going to rotate. So we know that the chain is on this side. This side is the left side of the bike. When we're riding forward, the wheel's going to go this way. So looking at it from the top, it looks like it's counterclockwise. And we can also look at the tire. The tire will have a directional indicator right here. You probably can't see it in the camera because it's dark, but the arrow is pointing this way, which means it rotates counterclockwise. So now it's time to set this aside and get our new rear tire and put it on. Alright, so camera is off the tripod right now. So you'll notice as we go around here, the edge of this new wheel tire, there's a little mark right here. And what that mark does is tells you the lightest part of the tire. The valve stem. It's going to be the heaviest part of the wheel, even though there's metal cut out, but it's built up right here. And you got the valve stem. So lightest part of the tire, heaviest part of the wheel. When we get the tire mounted up and and go to balance it, it's going to require us to do this with a smaller amount of weight. And that will, okay, so just like before, we are going to look for the arrow that tells us which direction this thing goes. And we can see right here, it says rear wheel rotation with the arrow pointing this way. So this side is going to be on top. So before we do this, what we're going to do is grab our lubrication, because that is a happy, successful life key right there. I'm going to find that little red spot again, which was where, there it is. I'm going to try to line that up with the valve stem. And for this, what we're going to do is push it on here. The bottom is the easiest one to do. See? So now we have the bottom lip installed. Bottom part of the bottom bead. They call this the bead of the tire. Now that we have that down, now it's time to install the top one. The top one's going to be kind of a pain. I want to make sure that it stays lined up with the valve stem. And I'm actually off just a little bit. So let's make a little mark on this wheel. Right about there. And that's going to correspond to what on this side? About between the rear wheel rotation sign and the 200 and the 260/17 size on this tire. So that's where I want the valve stem to be. You guessed it, more lubrication. These tires are nice and hot now because they've been sitting by the fire. So they're good and bendy. So now what we're going to do is push this down a little bit, some spots. Then what we're going to do, slow this little down. So now we're going to take our other tire iron, match this down a little bit. Match this down, this will stay put for the most part with enough force. Okay. Now what we're going to do is take this, stick this as far as we can. This would be a lot easier with two people, I can tell you that. Trash truck. Okay, so now we've got that. We're going to use this one. Push this down. Okay. Sometimes it's easier to just sit on that with your knee. And we're just going to hammer this thing like we did before. Now we're not pressing up against the wheel anymore. Now, as we do this, you may have noticed this starts to come up on top of the wheel. So sometimes you have to put a little bit more force into it and make sure it stays underneath that drop center like we talked about. So keep it underneath the ridge. If you don't keep it underneath the ridge, you'll never be able to get this on here. And sometimes it's easy to put if you had a assistant, they could just hold here and then put a bar right here to hold this down. But since I'm working by myself today, just use my knee. All right. Push it here. Let's see if I can use this other one. Pull it up and over. Like so. If the force gets to be too much, you could rip the bead, so you gotta be careful. Now that that side is over, I got it in a free hand. I'm gonna make sure that this gets pushed down under. Okay. Now, try to fit that in there. There we go. Now we can use our red bar. Get this pushed down the rest of the way. Like so. Okay. And that is it. The tire. Alrighty. Now that I've transferred everything back out to the garage, it's time to air up these tires. So I have my air line. I've got it connected to my air compressor. Now all I got to do is air up the tire on the valve stem. You got to be very careful with this because this bead is going to pop up. You have your hand right here on the tire, or right here, and that bead comes up and it pops. It pops with a very violent force. So what's going to happen is you could really get hurt. Now I haven't seen it firsthand, but I have heard of people resting their hands here and the bead pops and it literally breaks their finger. That's probably a really rare and extreme case, but it is kind of it's a possibility. So when I air these tires up, I want to make sure I'm not resting my hand on the rubber itself, bracing myself here. So I'm just going to hold this here, and as you put air in it, you're going to hear two pops. It's going to be the rear bead, the bottom bead, and the top bead. So here we go. Yeah, so what we've noticed now is air escaping right here. It's not actually allowing me to pump the tire up. So if that happens, which it happens every once in a while, probably because this tire is so deformed right here, here's what we're going to do. Push down on it a few times. And what that's going to do is allow that to seat in there a little bit better. There are some advanced techniques here which we might have to use. Nope. See? Alright, so we're waiting for two pops. Pop. Alright, sorry about that, guys. The compressor came on and it took a couple of minutes to fill up. So I just decided to go ahead and do the other side instead of explaining what happened there. Now that I've got the beads seated, now we're going to take our valve core tool and our valve core, and now we're going to screw them back in. Don't over tighten these. Make sure they're not cross-threaded. Now for tightness, you just want it finger tight. You don't need to put a whole lot of torque into it. It doesn't take a lot to seal one of these. Now, we're going to do the other one. Sometimes if you do it quickly enough, you wait for the two to pop, and then you grab this immediately and put it in. That way the tire doesn't deflate all the way like what happened here. It'll just take a little bit less time to pump it up, because now I'm starting at 0 PSI instead of 25 or 30 or whatever it was when the beads decided to seat. Alright, so now I've got my valve stems in there. Now I can go ahead and air up the tire. This gauge is wrong AF. It's like 4 or 5 PSI off. Top it off to about 40 to 45, and then I'll set it. There's 40 right there. All right, now I'm gonna do the other one. If the compressor comes on, I'll just pause the video and wait till it stops, and then come back when the compressor might come on with this rear tire, because there's a lot more air that's gonna have to go into here. All right, got the Motion Pro tire pressure gauge, digital, lit, full battery, 38.6, that's pretty close. I set my tire pressures at about 36. That's only at 35. All right, well, let's pump it up a little bit. So the reason I like 36, I know tire pressure is a very, very sensitive subject. It's very subjective. See, it says it's at 40. Tire pressure is very subjective because it changes the bike's handling a lot. And there's a lot of common wisdom, old wives' tales, and things like that. Your Uncle Buck will be like, man, back when I was your age, you gotta run 25 pounds. Then you get those people that get so caught up in what the manufacturer says, they go by exactly what's written on the swing arm. And they say, oh, it's gotta be 38 and 42. Okay, fine. 38 and 42. All right, that's fine. And then you got guys at the track that run a different tire. You get guys that'll run the soft carcass Pirelli, and which requires a little bit higher tire pressure. And then you'll get guys that run Dunlops with a hard carcass that requires a softer pressure. So like 22 or 26, 28 maybe. So it's probably best to just experiment with what works for you. I found that 36 gives me a good line between traction and steerability. If your tires are too soft, for example, when I went to New Jersey Motorsports Park, there was the tire expert there, and I told him I was running like 34, 35 pounds, and he said, man, that is way too high. You need to have that thing down like 29. Okay, so I go out at 29 pounds and proceed to hot tear my tire. So then I decide, oh man, well that's a little bit too high, and I thought it was maybe a cold tear. So I dropped it down to 28, went out for a session, got worse. Went down to 27 the next session, got worse. I'm like, okay. So I went back up to like 35. It got better. 37, it got even better. And that day at the track, believe it or not, 38 PSI was the magic number to keep it from hot tearing. So when I'm on the street and I go below 36 pounds, I feel the front end, it feels a little bit harder to steer, and it's a little bit more vague. If I go to 36, the bike steers really fast, it steers nice and crisp, but it doesn't have a feeling of plowing through the corners. Same with the rear. When I go down to like 30 PSI, the bike doesn't feel stable in the corners on the side of the tire, so I use 36. When I pump it up to 38 or 40, then it starts to get like this, almost like it's too, I can't really describe it. It's a little bit too sensitive. So 36 front and rear for me works. Now for your bike and your suspension and your weight and your conditions and your climate, that may be different. So don't just put 36 in yours like just because I do, and don't put 29 in yours because some tire guy told you that's what you need to run. I know Pirelli has all these charts out there, so take everything with a grain of salt and experiment on your own, and you'll probably be a lot happier.